a deal with a seller that makes a ton of cash, but other times, it's not so simple. If they buy on impulse without doing their proper checks, then they can end up with some dud goods that leave them badly out of pocket. It doesn't happen very often, but it still happens, and mistakes can be very costly when you're in the pawn business. Let's take a look at 10 times the Pawn Stars got seriously scammed. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos about your favorite movies and TV shows.
The police took him from me. That was the biggest bust I ever had in the pawn shop.
Number 10. Dud Diamonds. When it comes to precious stones like diamonds, an expert eye is usually needed to make sure that they're the real deal. The average Joe could easily be sold glass instead and not know the difference. Back in 2010, Rick shared what he called the biggest bust he's ever had in the shop. A well-dressed businessman showed up to the Pawn Star with a glistening pair of diamond earrings. After giving them a thorough check and asking a plethora of questions, Rick was sold and forked over $40,000. Unfortunately, while the diamonds were real, where the man got them wasn't. A couple of days later, the police turned up looking for the earrings, and it turned out that they were actually stolen property. They managed to track down the criminal, but Rick had to hand back the earrings to the original owner and never retrieved his $40,000. That's an expensive mistake to make.
I can't do it, man. But I'll call you if I change my mind.
Call me.
Okay?
All right, man.
Number 9. The Hendrix Heist. Every now and then, something comes into the shop that has significant value because of who it's belonged to. In a 2014 episode of the show, a long-haired gentleman strolled into the store looking to hawk one of Jimi Hendrix's guitars. Rick was so excited and quickly brought in a local expert, Jesse Amoroso of Cowtown Guitars, to examine the 1963 white Fender Stratocaster. Much to Rick's delight, the item was genuine, right down to the scuff marks from Jimmy's left hand playing. Amoroso estimated the item was worth around $1 million, and the seller wanted $750,000. Rick was prepared to go $600,000, but the seller walked away. This is where it gets interesting. The guitar was then spotted up for sale with Cowtown Guitars, the same place owned by the expert Harrison brought in. Just pure coincidence? Or did Amoroso strike a deal with the seller behind Rick's back? There's food for thought. We bet Rick wishes he hadn't been so cheap.
And being the typical 18-year-old kid, I thought I knew everything. And it must have got around town pretty quick because I bought 6 fake Rolexes in 1 week.
Number 8. Costly Corey. Corey Harrison is the heir to the pawn shop throne and son of Rick Harrison. Corey has been around the business his whole life, having grown up watching his dad and grandpa running things. When it came time for him to step into the role himself at 18, he got a little too confident a little too quickly. In 2010, he told the History Channel how he ended up costing the business $4,000 in 1 week after buying 6 fake Rolexes. Needless to say, his family were more annoyed than ever. However, Rick did chime in to defend his son, as there are multiple ways that sellers make a fake watch look real. If you don't have the fully trained eye, then it can be difficult to spot the difference between them, and ultimately cost you a pretty penny if you end up buying them. Who's got time for that? Number 7. Shoeless Joe Jackson. If you're a sports fan, then simple things like signatures and memorabilia can be worth a sentimental fortune. Rick made a huge gamble when a seller brought in a book that appeared to contain a signature of baseball legend Shoeless Joe Jackson on the inner cover. The seller had a certificate of authenticity and genuinely seemed to believe it was real himself. Rick believed that the book was an incredible find, especially as Jackson couldn't read or write. He handed over $13,000 then and there and waited until after the deal was made to call in the experts. Unfortunately for Rick, they thought it was most likely a dud. Based on that advice, the signature went off for examination and it was confirmed it was a big, fat fake. And a badly done one at that. The The only thing that book was good for was lighting a fire on a cold night. Can you imagine wasting that kind of money on something that turned out to be rubbish?
This doesn't look game worn. Willie Mays was a badass. He was sliding around in the dirt and the grass. I imagine there would be a bunch of stains on it.
Number 6. Woeful Willie Mays. Back in 2012, Corey made another costly blunder, this time for the sum of $31,000. The item in question was a uniform that was supposedly worn by San Francisco Gaines player Willie Mays in 1961, but it seemed inauthentic from the start. It was sold as game-worn, but as Chumlee pointed out, it had no obvious signs of wear at all. No grass stains, no nothing. The seller didn't offer up any paperwork to say it was real either, but clearly Corey was sold on the idea and forked over the cash without a second thought. After the show, internet sleuths tracked down the uniform and discovered that the boys had put it up for sale at $80,000. It received just under $20,000 at auction, but as it turns out, the uniform was never worn by Mays at all. It was actually a salesman's sample with the value of about $3,000. Sure, Corey didn't exactly get ripped off as he managed to make $20,000 back, but they also knowingly sold on what was more or less known to be a fake. That's not good business, guys. We expected better.
I want $1,200 for it.
No, you don't.
Number 5. Striking Strongbox. Sometimes when the guys get cheated, they have no one to blame but themselves. In a Season 5 episode, Rick made a purchase without consulting an expert, shelling out $450 for a 19th century Wells Fargo strongbox. The seller also tried to unload 2 ball and chain sets that were supposedly used at Yuma and Folsom, but Rick had enough knowledge in his back pocket to realize that they were probably fakes. Unfortunately, he didn't have the common sense to think that the strongbox was probably fake too. It took a purchase examination performed by Mark Hall Patton for Rick to be told that it was a complete fantasy piece and one of the most faked items out there. The old man later revealed that he knew the item wasn't authentic from the off, but let his son go through with the deal so that he could just laugh at him later about it. What a guy!
Thanks, Mark.
Good to see you, Richard.
Number 4. Auction Atrocities. Items may hang around for a little too long at the shop, or simply be of too high a value to sell on the premises. So that's when the guys head off to the auctions. Rick tried to unload several high-priced items one day, including a 1940s Indian motorcycle with a sidecar and a Fender Stratocaster guitar previously owned by Vic Flick. Although he had high hopes, the day soon went sideways at Julian's Auctions in LA. The Pawn Pro lost $29,000 on the motorcycle and $35,000 on the guitar. If that wasn't enough, he also lost out on some other items that weren't featured, making his loss around $100,000. That's a hell of a bad day at the office, isn't it? Sold most of my items, got my butt handed to me, and it doesn't feel good, said Rick. Trying to look for a silver lining, but I just can't find it. I'm dreading to go back to the shop. We don't blame him. It's likely that the old man had a few choice words for his son after that. Number 3. Robo No-No. Boys just love their toys, don't they? Chumlee is no different. The overly enthusiastic buyer wants to purchase a 31-ton Robosaurus that breathes fire and ate small plants and trucks for breakfast. Yeah, it sounds insane. That's because it is. Corey accompanied Chumlee to view an 80s-made robot in a 2012 episode, and the pair were quickly given the hard sell. The metal Tyrannosaurus Rex was a money-making machine, and they were told it could be used for all manners of things, from renting it out to performing at family functions. Astonishingly, the seller wanted $1 million for the crazy invention. Although the guys were intrigued by it, they decided that ultimately it wouldn't be a wise buying decision and didn't make the deal. It's probably a good thing too. Something that big and old would definitely need some extensive repair work at some point. Cars are expensive, but have you ever tried to service a 31-ton metal animal? That's a different story.
Thank you.
Number 2. Mistaken Mandolin. Chum Lee is the lovable dope that simply can't be trusted with making big decisions. He proved it several times, but especially earlier this year when he took it upon himself to buy a Gibson mandolin that he believed was authentic. The seller picked it up at a yard sale after recognizing the name Gibson, a premium guitar brand. With no one else in the store to wrangle him, Chum made the deal for $1,500. The seller walked away happy, and Chum Lee was convinced that he'd made a deal that would make Rick smile. When he took it into the guitar specialist to be investigated, he had a skip in his step, only to be told it was fake, and a very obvious one at that. The shoddy craftsmanship was evident to the specialist, who pointed out the plastic finish and the moniker that wasn't even the same font as Gibson used. Needless to say, Chum Lee walked away with his tail between his legs. He probably got a scolding from Rick for that one, but if it taught him a lesson, who are we kidding? He'll probably do it again! Oh, Chum Lee.
One of the biggest losses I probably ever took in this business is back when CZs first came out.
Number 1. Catastrophic cubic zirconia. Before his passing, the old man was the OG of the Pawn Stars empire, but he wasn't always so knowledgeable. He had his fair share of mishaps in his youth too. Back in the 80s, man-made diamonds aka cubic zirconia had just started to flood the market, and even trained eyes were having trouble spotting fakes. The old man confessed in a 2010 segment that everyone in the business was duped, including himself. During that period, he shelled out around $30,000 buying fakes that he thought were the real thing. These days, the boys have perfected their rock buying in a simple yet effective way. If the diamonds look too perfect, it's probably fake, as there are very few perfectly cut out rocks on the market. Plus, testing equipment has probably evolved since the 80s too, which doesn't hurt. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen. Catch you next time.